All right, you should be prompted to hit OK or hit accept. Unfortunately, for consent purposes, if you don't, you'll be actually booted from the session. So really important that you hit the right button. Yeah, why don't we get started? I'll keep it. My apologies if I might have been muted that time. Just want to welcome everybody, let you know that we are having people join from the waiting room. We will be recording this session, so you were just encouraged to select that prompt. For consent purposes, if you didn't, you'll actually be booted from the session. So hope you press the right button and stick around with us. But I believe Crystal is on the waiting room, so I'm gonna get started because there's a lot of great stuff for us to discuss today. Firstly, I want to take a moment to connect with the land that we're on. We're fortunate enough to be gathering from many territories today, and I want to recognize the original occupants of the places where we reside and pay respects to Indigenous people's belief and connection to the land. This is especially important because we're gathered here today with the purpose of knowledge sharing, and that has been a practice that's been intentionally restricted in Indigenous communities through oppressive white supremacist practices for a very long time and continues to happen today. My name is Vanessa. I'm coming to you all from Treaty 13, which is covered by the Mississauga of the Credit. There are many nations who existed on this land and continue to today, and this is the home of the Métis, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. The map provided is from nativeland.ca. It's a really excellent resource for you to find more information on the original occupants of where you reside. Something else that we like to share with Canadian Women in Sport are the 5 sport-related calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Report. As I share these now, recognizing they really do speak to policy, but our intent in sharing them is for you to reflect on how you can act on them on a daily basis in order to make reconciliation a reality. The first is that the stories of Aboriginal athletes are being told, that there's support for long-term Aboriginal athlete development, that the barriers present in the Physical Activity and Sport Act are reduced and the inclusion of Aboriginal peoples is promoted, that sport policies, programs, and initiatives are inclusive of Aboriginal peoples by providing funding, access to athlete development, sport leaders who are culturally relevant and have received some form of anti-racism training. Lastly, that Indigenous people's territorial protocols are respected, that local Indigenous communities are engaged in international sporting events. Indigenous women and girls are underrepresented in sport in this country, and they face multiple barriers to participation at all levels. It's our intention at Canadian Women in Sport that in addition to these calls to action, we connect and build better relationships to address this gap through our work. Ask that you reflect once again on the information that was shared and recognize how these calls to action apply to your involvement in society and sport. Before we launch into the content of our session today, I'd like to share a quote with you from Leela Watson. Here it says, "If you have come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." Leela Watson is an Aboriginal elder, activist, and educator from Queensland, Australia. And this quote was provided in response to caring individuals coming forward saying, "How can I help? What do Aboriginal people want?" No one is in a position to save anybody else, and it is for all of our benefit that we strive for an equitable society. And so with that, I want to wish everybody a happy Black History Month as well. All right, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Vanessa. My pronouns are she, her. and I'm a program coordinator with Canadian Women in Sport. I will be sharing a brief presentation with you all today before we get into the really exciting conversations we'll be holding with our guest speakers. The content today was developed by Shelley Callahan. She has been a part of the fabric of the Canadian Women in Sport organization and has driven the bus on many, many projects involving engaging women in sport. And so she developed this content, which I'm going to share with you all today, which captures, information that she developed through programs, resources, focus groups, surveys, and just the breadth of her experience in this space. So where we'll begin is with an introduction to Canadian Parks and Rec Association, as well as Canadian Women in Sport, where the organization's working in partnership to deliver this content. We'll go into the foundations of gender equity, and I'll speak to a few of those key knowledge pieces. And then we'll discuss the challenges to participation for engaging women in sport, the solutions, current solutions, and then the regional perspective of Ontario will be shared with you from our phenomenal guest speakers today. And I look forward to introducing them later on in the session. We also have some time reserved at the end for Q&A, so please feel free to add your questions to the chat. You don't have to wait until the Q&A in order to do that. I'm joined by Crystal Clark, who's doing the producing in the back end, and she'll be able to flag those for us. So once you have a question, please feel free to pop it in the chat, and we'll try to conserve as much time as possible in our delivery to be able to address those in full. All right. The Canadian Parks and Recreation Association is a national organization, and they're dedicated to realizing the full potential of parks and recreation as a major contributor to community health and vibrancy. The organization is over 60 years old, and CPRA has been the national voice for parks and recreation, advancing the collective interest of their members. CPRA is a national network dedicated to the well-being of people, communities, and the natural and built environments. And finally, CPRA provides services for their members and partners that cultivate dialogue, learning, and innovation. At Canadian Women in Sport, we haven't been around quite as long as CPRA. We've only been around for 40 years, but we're a national organization dedicating to advancing gender equity through sport and in society more broadly. The way that we do that is by working at the systems level. So we partner with phenomenal organizations like CPRA, like Parks and Rec Ontario, to be able to share best practices, influence policies, and create better opportunities for women and girls to engage in sport physical activity. So this initiative really came from and was inspired by actions by the government in 2018 when they announced that with the target goal to achieve gender equity in sport by 2035. This is the second series of workshops, which is just one piece of the project, but it's targeted at retaining the participation of women and girls in sport and recreation in Canada, with special interest in the groups that you see at the bottom left of the screen. So girls 9 to 15, new mothers, women age 55 plus, and girls and women with intersecting identities. All right, moving on to foundational knowledge. So as a sport and gender equity organization, I find myself explaining this quite often, but it's a very important distinction to make, which is the difference between equality and equity. These two words sound fairly similar, often get used interchangeably in conversation, but there's a fairly significant difference, which will ultimately impact the results of any initiative that you're looking to enact. So equality, as you can see on the slide here, the example is that everybody's provided a bicycle. All of the bicycles are identical, and so it's technically fair. People are provided the exact same resource. But as you can see here, not everybody is able to use it to the same degree, right? The person who is in a wheelchair can't use the bicycle at all. The child is struggling to use it because it's too big. It only works for one person on screen. On the right, when you take an equitable approach, resources are distributed in a way that allows everybody to benefit equally and reach that same finish line. So everybody has the resource that best suits their needs. And that's the greatest distinction between equality and equity. Here we have another key term, which is intersectionality. This is a term that was coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who is a lawyer and activist in the United States. And her work, when this term first came to fruition, had to do with the intersection between gender and race, and how Black women in the United States were being treated by police officers. So really, in that example, what we're here to show is that intersectionality looks at a whole individual, all of the pieces that make up that person, and how they influence the way that they navigate through the existing systems in our society. This is a really, big concept. It comes up quite a bit now, and it's becoming more normalized, but there's some nuance to it that's going to come through in a lot of the examples that we share for how to better engage women in sport. So I'm going to be drawing back to this quite a bit so that, there are some practical applications that you can connect to this high level concept. All right, what's our role in supporting gender equity? So here's some actions right off the top that you're going to get to see some more examples about how you can enact this. But really what we're encouraging folks to do is speak up. We want you to be vocal about equitable access and question policies and practices that limit participation and leadership opportunities for women in sport. We want to celebrate women's participation. Right? It's not always an easy road for everyone. And so we want to be the people that are really encouraging this and, feeding into a positive cycle of participation. Train and certify women, right? We want to get women in leadership positions, and that doesn't happen on its own. That's something that we have to push for every day. We want to actively recruit women. This is through invitation or many other streams that will get mentioned. Communicate these opportunities, so finding those networks that are most effective in getting women involved and aware of the opportunities around them. We want to continue to educate ourselves and the people around us, always being sort of that positive influence that pushes those boundaries and, demanding others to be their best. And then we have resources that we're going to provide some examples like the gender equity lens, which is a really great tool for better understanding the landscape and how to enact gender equity through sport. Okay, here are some of our learning outcomes today from the core presentation I'll be delivering. We want you to understand the challenges that adult women face to becoming and staying physically active. Want you to understand what motivates adult women to participate in active living for life. And then we want you to be, leave with an inspiration to assess programs and apply strategies to increase the participation of adult women in active living programs that you're involved in. All right, I'm going to launch into a section to do with the current landscape and really understanding the population and the intersex of identity of women in Canada today. So this graph really captures that, Canada is not unique in this, but because of the Second World War, we had a huge baby boom. When we talk about boomers, we know that this is a large demographic that is aging, currently sitting in their mid-50s to early 70s, and will continue to grow the demographic pool. We also know that women tend to live longer than men, so we can expect this trend to continue with a large group of women in their 80s who still want to be physically active, right? So there's going to be a high demand for programming for women 55 plus, and that's not a homogenous group in and of itself. So we want to be really mindful of this, and this is a huge opportunity to engage women in sport and physical activity. In Canada, we want to acknowledge the Indigenous population. More than 1.67 million people self-identify as Indigenous, which makes up almost 5% of the population. And it's actually the fastest growing population in Canada. and grew by 42.5% between 2006 and 2016. Indigenous people are also the youngest population in Canada. About 44% were under the age of 25 in 2016, compared to 28% of the population of non-Indigenous Canadians. The Canadian Constitution recognizes 3 groups of Indigenous peoples. So there are First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. These are 3 distinct peoples with unique histories, languages, cultural practices, and spiritual beliefs. The map shows how the composition of Indigenous populations vary across the provinces and territories. First Nations constitute 63% of Indigenous populations, Inuit 4%, and Métis 32%. This graph provides information on the trends over time of female immigrants as a percentage of the total female population in Canada. In 2011, National Household Survey estimated that 3.5 million immigrant women and girls in Canada represent 21% of the country's total female population. And this marks the highest proportion of immigrants among Canada's female population in 100 years. We see this as a wonderful opportunity to grow women's sport and recreation, as we know that sport can be an incredible tool for settlement and community building. We'll take a quick look here at household types. So in terms of household types, just to give you an idea, 1-person households became the most common type of household for the first time in 2016. Among seniors, so this is identified as people aged 65 and older, 1/3 of women were living alone in 2016, compared to only 17.5% of men in that age group. Knowing a lot of senior women are living on their own, again, shows us that there's a great opportunity to engage them in sport and physical activity. In 2016, the population of multi-generational households rose the fastest. So that was by 37.5% of all household types. This type of living arrangement is more common in Aboriginal and immigrant populations, which accounts for the growing share of Canada's population. All right, I would love to get people active in the chat for a moment, and I'm about to share some information on what was identified as the most popular activity for women 18 plus. So if you have a guess as to what was the most common physical activity for women age 18 plus, please pop it in the chat. I'll be sharing on the next slide in, let's say 10 seconds. All right, Valerie says softball. I'm seeing a lot of walking and running, swimming, gardening, hiking, Zumba, volleyball, golf, pickleball, fitness class, yoga. All right, you have 3 more seconds to contribute your guess. This is an active chat, I love it. 3, 2, 1, fantastic. So here on the slide, you'll see walking is the #1 activity in Canada across all age groups over 18 plus. And it's been the top activity actually for decades. For women 18 years and over, walking is almost twice as popular as the next closest activity, which is gardening and yard work. Then we have social dancing, bicycling, exercise classes, yoga. So a lot of what was mentioned. But again, we're sort of seeing here that we're not really seeing necessarily like group activities or team sports, which again, there's a lot of opportunity there if we create the right social dynamic and environment for it. Okay, moving on to challenges to participation. Over here, we have a map which speaks to, it's a roadmap for physical literacy and how we can understand our role as program leaders in keeping women active. So throughout a woman's life, she may experience many exciting challenges that can create obstacles to being active and take her off the physical activity map. So the ones mentioned on here can be pregnancy, work challenges, caring for parents, illness and injury, and physical restrictions. I want to highlight caring for parents as well, because we know that, this population is the growing population is aging. And so there might be more people and women especially in demand to support their aging parents. So something to be mindful again of the different age groups within women 55 plus. As program leaders, understanding these challenges will help in developing solutions that support getting women back on track. And by creating a constant stream of on-ramps, you'll help women choose to get involved or return to active lifestyles. This really isn't a linear journey, although the map, does have one direction. It's intentionally drawn in a squiggle. And one size does not fit all. So we don't want to guess. You want to ask women and really engage and consult them in their ideas of what would best support them in returning to a physically active lifestyle. And I'm really looking forward to eventually passing the mic to Gabriella, who's going to talk in specific about how postnatal mothers are really underserved in this space and face a great challenge to returning to physical activity. Okay, the next slides are going to cover the many challenges that all women face in being active, as well as specific challenges for women 55 plus, newcomer women, new mothers, and Indigenous women. We'll talk about the ways that you can help women overcome these challenges. And the information has been compiled again from a lot of these programs that have run over the years, either through focus groups, consultation, or intentionally coordinated programs from 2007 all the way to 2020. These challenges are categorized in 4 ways: physical, emotional, social, and societal. So first off, we want to cover the physical challenges. When we talk about health, this is physical and mental health, and it can keep women from being active in the form of injuries, pain, illness, or depression, for example. This is why it's important to provide adaptations and create a welcoming environment where women can ask questions and really let you know what's going on with them. Because without that open line of communication, you might be offering something that's entirely inaccessible. Which brings us to access. Access can look like financial barriers, proximity to the activity, transportation or funding for transportation, access to child or elder care is also very important if women are participating without a caregiving being a concern. That can really alleviate things and also improve the engagement while they're there. Skill development, this is huge because we know that girls are underserved in sport. Once you engage women 55 plus, it's really likely that they haven't had the opportunity to learn those fundamental movement skills, or they may be physically illiterate. And so making sure that your programs are grounded in best practices for teaching physical literacy will make a huge difference. Programming. So barriers to programming can be due to competing priorities. They might be scheduled at a totally inopportune time, or you might not get the retention that you're looking for if you're doing one-off programs. We're going to speak to the importance of routine for building community, but also for getting those recurring participants. Transportation was referenced. This is a major barrier if the activity is far away, or women do not drive, or maybe there's public transit that's not offered for where you are. When you're, we also know that facilities are not really available right now, so this is maybe not a huge issue, but something to keep in mind for when, depending on where you are, things open back up. And then we have weather. So weather can be a major barrier for women, many women, in particular ice and snow. So providing suggestions on how to dress warmly and avoid fall by wearing ice grippers are just some examples of how you can help women plan for the weather so that they can be physically active all year long. All right, moving on to the emotional challenges. So here we have one that's incredibly common. That's why we have it right at the top is guilt. And it also ties into competing priorities. So not only do women often bear a lot of responsibility in many different aspects of their life, but taking time for themselves to be physically active can lead to carrying guilt, like the emotional labor of carrying guilt on top of really trying to schedule it at all, which is a challenge. So once again, we know that there are competing priorities in women's lives, and if the scheduling just isn't there, then that's a huge barrier. Confidence. So for many reasons, women might lack confidence in their ability to participate. This can be internalized because of different sport experiences that they've had in the past, or it can be that they're walking into an environment that is really unwelcoming, and so they don't have the confidence to be there or fully engage. Lastly, we have transitions. So women as they age go through a number of life transitions and often are not sure where they fit in anymore. Participation in active living does provide a great opportunity for women going through different life transitions, as it provides a fun way to plug into something healthy and fun while being with others and sharing a similar interest. So be sure to constantly reach out to past participants to encourage them to return when they've been away for a while. All right, now we have our social challenges. So social challenges are those that impact the social needs of women, and without these social aspects in place, they can be barriers to participation and physical activity for sport. The first one listed here is buddies. That could also be friends or pals, depending on your preferred language. Not having a buddy or a network to do something with has been consistently cited by women of every age as a major barrier to their participation, as they're not just motivated to do things necessarily on their own, especially if this is an environment that they're not comfortable in. Providing opportunities for women to meet outside of the activity, like potlucks or coffee chats, is a great way for women to meet each other and develop that active women's network. Support. So being supported to participate in active living by your family, a partner, your employer, or even your children is very important. And women who do not have this support have cited it as a major challenge. What was really interesting to me is when I learned this is that this level of influence is a two-way street, because we at Canadian Women in Sport know that active moms and parents have a positive influence of 22%. Like it's 22% more likely that their daughter will be physically active. But it turns out that works in the opposite direction as well. So having children who are physically active, even adult children encouraging you to be physically active, is a key factor in women's participation. Lastly, we want to cite inclusion. So women like to participate in environments that are welcoming and supportive. And in many cases, cliques, regardless of the age group, they never end unless we address them head on, can be a problem. So it's important to ensure that they're not happening and all participants feel included. A really great way to do that is by, extending ownership to the participants that you've had. So, letting them know, hey, we're going to have a new member joining our Zumba program today. It would be really helpful to me if you could make them feel welcome, and maybe shoulder tapping one or two people. Again, you're sharing that responsibility, and you're also building buy-in within your returning participants. All right, before we jump into the unique challenges facing different intersecting identities, we're going to talk about societal challenges. So these are imposed by society and can impact participation in active living. So the first is body image. Women, again, regardless of age, have told us that they are self-conscious of their bodies, with many saying they don't want to go to a gym until they reach a certain point in their fitness journey, right? So not even feeling like they can access that resource until they've met a certain standard, which is, that's difficult to hear. Offering women's only private spaces helps women, feel comfortable engaging and participating fully while removing a little bit of the stigma of body image and the influence of body image. This is also beneficial to women whose cultural practices impede them from participating in physical activity in front of men. We have gender roles and stereotypes that we have to discuss. So unfortunately, we still live in a society where women's participation in physical activity and sport is not considered acceptable. And this societal reflection can change throughout a woman's life. So playing softball, maybe as a girl or in their youth was fine, but as a mother, it's frowned upon. And then at 65 years old, it's considered abnormal. This is especially true in many cultures where women do not participate in any sport or physical activity. And as leaders, it's our responsibility to help change this mindset, right? And I think there's some sports and physical activity that come off the top of our head as ones that are, again, dedicated to a certain age and stage, but those are self-imposed ideas, right? And we can work outside of those bounds. Lastly, we'll touch on culture. So women from different cultures may have, depending on the culture, might have added challenges, including language barriers or maybe a lack of awareness to the opportunities available to them. Again, we touched on that sport can be a great tool for community building and settlement for newcomer women, but we have to ensure that we're tapping into the appropriate networks to make sure that that message is getting across. By working together and understanding, we can create more opportunity on both sides. Okay, now we are placing an intersectional lens, and we'll dive into some of the challenges facing the specific target audiences referenced in one of the very earlier slides. So looking at the unique challenges for women 55 plus, ageism, right off the bat. The term ageism is the process of systemic stereotyping and discrimination against older persons. As people age, they often get pigeonholed into what society assumes they should or should not do, and the opportunities for them are often diminishing. Health. So when working with women 55 plus, there's a good chance that they might have, conditions like arthritis, high blood pressure, or a host of other chronic conditions, but it doesn't mean that they can't participate. They may require some adaptations to help them stay active now and as they continue to age, right? The adaptations that are in place right now may only be effective for a certain period of time. And this is why, as a leader, it's really important for you to maintain those open lines of communication, right? And that all stems from relationship building and fostering inclusive environments. Wording. This one is pretty unique, but many women through 2007 to 2020 and a number of different channels have vocalized that they do not consider themselves as, quote, seniors, or think programming for older adults is for them. They're fine with getting a senior's discount, however. So that's really the only spot where people want to see the word senior. With that in mind, wording is highly important. So seniors or older adults, as mentioned, that title can be a barrier to participation, especially when it's used, for programming that's women 55 plus. That's a very broad age range. And also, those service offerings for those different age brackets should be different and should be catered towards those individuals. But really, let's remove old from the vocabulary. And the best practice is to engage those groups to better understand, okay, how do you want to be referred to? What language would be really enticing for you to come and join this program? Here are two main challenges and considerations for engaging new mothers. So childcare, right? And childcare that isn't, exorbitant in cost. Those duties and responsibilities can often fall on the mother. And so as we talked about, like the guilt and the time management, those can be huge barriers. So if you have an option to include childcare as part of your program, and even, childcare where the mom still gets to have time on her own to participate in programming, but knows that her child is being cared for, that's a really great resource and way to ensure that you're engaging new moms. The other one is partner support. Again, the people immediately in the support network of the mom will play a huge role in whether they're able to carve out that time for themselves to become physically active. So again, if that network doesn't exist, finding resources in order to build up that support system is going to be hugely important. Moving on to the unique challenges for Indigenous and newcomer women. The first one here we have mentioned is culture and language. So active living programming offered in Canada tends to be very Western focused with English or French spoken, which can be intimidating or unwelcoming for Indigenous and newcomer women. Offering a variety of activities and providing information in different languages is highly critical to engage this large and growing group of women, as referenced before in the data from the previous section. You want to invite women to share activities, dances, sports from their own cultural background, and teach others how to participate in that. You want to be flexible on the clothing choices for participants. And for example, having the appropriate bathing uniforms for women who practice modesty, right? That's a great example. Childcare. So as mentioned in the data before, Indigenous and newcomer households can also often be intergenerational. And so there are a lot of people caring for either children or elders. And so really understanding, okay, what toll does that take, or how does that impact somebody's availability? Creating program offerings that could engage, even the youngest members of the household or the oldest members of the household to be able to maybe work with the middle members of the household. That can be a great way to make sure that everybody's active and everybody's getting the benefit of sport and physical activity. Lastly, women can often be, the leaders in their household, and as such take on much more stress, and families can go through a deal of grief, loss, and change. Many Indigenous and newcomer women need support, right, from a long history of oppression. So in the 97th call to action, as mentioned in the Truth and Reconciliation report, having culturally relevant program leaders available, or at minimum sport leaders who have received some form of anti-racism training, will be critical to avoid inflicting more harm. It's important that as leaders you're aware and have access to supplementary services that could support the women that you're engaging, right? And maybe even partnering with organizations that can step in and really enhance your programming. All right, this is the last section that you'll hear from me before I get to pass the mic to our guest speakers, and we're going to talk about solutions. As program leaders, we need to figure out how to create confidence, competence, and motivation for women to engage in sport and physical activity. And these are the key components of physical literacy. So we want to ensure that our programs are contributing to women's physical literacy. And what that looks like will depend on the age and stage of the people you're engaging. So you can have an individual who was very physically active but sustained an injury and now has to adapt in order to regain their confidence. Or you can have someone who is brand new to sport and physical activity, and you have to be able to integrate those fundamental movement skills in order to avoid injury, but also so that they can build up the confidence. Confidence is always driving our will to participate. So how can we feed into women's confidence to stay physically active? Okay, we're going to talk about creating confidence. Offer skill training and opportunities like try-it sessions and regular orientations. Again, this would be where you're maybe engaging someone for the first time and you're trying to create an opportunity with very few barriers. So it's held at a time that is accessible. There's maybe no fee to participate, and you're creating a very, very exciting and welcoming environment. We want to focus on those fundamental movement skills in order to ensure that their participation is long and that they're incrementally challenging themselves. You want to offer a variety of activities to create exposure and then show, okay, you're actually not limited to these two activities. There's a breadth of things that you can do, and then see where their interest takes them. Offering unstructured fun is always a great way to secure new participants and build competence. And then again, making sure that the groups that you're engaging are reflected in your delivery staff. So that is, recruitment through your programming. You've had somebody who's been around for 4 years, they know exactly what's going on, and maybe they can help out in some capacity, or they can even be certified and become a leader themselves. Now we're creating confidence. So some examples of how that can be done is developing women-only programs. Again, ensuring that you're creating an environment where women feel confident to be able to engage fully, and they are less concerned about, making mistakes. Training programs leaders to, training program leaders to read medical forms and understand the health conditions and adapt activities. Again, this is, one way through when somebody is first joining your program, medical form is great because you can get all that information up front, but we also want to understand that things change through ages and stages. So is there a way that you can continue to touch base or foster a level of communication where you can stay in the know about what adaptations will be most beneficial to your participants? We want to create a welcoming environment. We want to develop partnerships to be able to deliver programming, especially when we're engaging with communities that we're less familiar with. Explaining programs so that women know what to expect, right? I think we've all been in that position where we're going to something for the very first time and you're just thinking, what do I wear? What do I need to bring? Is there going to be a break, or is this going to be a bit of a marathon? So really providing all of that information up front about what will be supplied and what is required. And again, details around timing, will there be food, etc. Lastly, we want to ask women what they want and make them part of the planning stage. Okay, we don't want to make any assumptions, and we want to be able to benefit from their consultation. All right, lastly, we're going to talk about fostering motivation. So there are a number of tips and tricks to be able to do this. The first of which is food. Food brings people in any environment. But again, if you're trying to create a really social environment, food is a great way to do that. I want to add that you, again, want to consider who's going to be in the room, and there may be some dietary restrictions. Or if you're about to spend $100 at Tim Hortons, maybe that money can be actually shared with the participants in order to create a potluck where they're bringing their own food. Maybe that's a part of their culture. and you're building relationships that way. Developing routine. Routine is especially important, and I know that one of our speakers, Peggy, is going to talk about the power of routine in their experience in sport and physical activity. But again, you're creating expectations and you're building community, and routine is a powerful tool to be able to do that. Goal setting and offering rewards are highly motivational, and it also shows a level of commitment to somebody's development. Creating family activities to be able to engage, many members of the family and the community, and also alleviate some of those other responsibilities in terms of childcare. Creating cost-saving initiatives, so a 2-for-1 if you bring a friend or something like that, to be able to engage folks and remove some of those financial barriers. And then personal invitations. These are so much more effective than a flyer or really any sort of open communication campaign. And it's a great way to, show that you care when you're reaching out to somebody that is maybe a returning participant, instead of making that assumption that they'll always be a part of your program. You want to ensure that your environments are very fun and your programming and activities are fun. You can, always continue to come back to the idea that physical activity will contribute to their overall health. That's a great motivating factor. And then creating a little bit of healthy competition through activities, events, providing prizes through challenges is a great way to motivate as well. All right, so now you're done with me. I'm going to pass the mic. We have 3 speakers who are joining us today. The first will be Peggy and Becky, who will be co-delivering, speaking about their experience of sport as mother and daughter. This is really exciting for us because we do often speak to the benefit of sport participation and family and buy-in, but we actually have 2 people who are going to get to tell you about that. And then we have Gabriella Pimel. She is a she is a personal trainer who specializes in prenatal fitness and postpartum recovery. So I am excited to pass the mic to Peggy and Becky. I do know that Becky is experiencing some tech issues living up north with a huge pile of snow that they've gotten, but I am, Crystal, I'm assuming that Becky was able to join us?
Yeah, she's joined us.
Okay, fantastic. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Peggy and Becky.
I'm not sure who's talking first. I'm Peggy. I'm the mother of Becky. I live in the Blue Mountains area, and I have belonged for numerous years to a all-women's curling program and to a outdoor aquafit program that has been halted due to COVID. But yes, so those are my experiences with all women over 55 programs. They've worked out great. The aquafit program was an outdoor facility, and we just knew every morning at 8:30 that we had to show up because there was one of these ladies in this picture that was going to tell us, oh, it's time to go. We have to be there, because we didn't rely on our cell phones. We didn't rely on texting everybody or Facebooking. We just knew that if our instructor thought we were going to be there, we better be there. So, and it's amazing because the instructor's outside and we're in this hot tub, as you see here. So, but now we're shut down from there, but that's okay. We're trying to forge on at another facility, but it's indoor and not near as exciting as the outdoor outfit. So, yeah. So not sure what else I need today. The all women's curling is really popular. We've had a full draw in the fall, so that's amazing for women over 55. There's only 3 under the age of 55, and all the women are very excited about curling, and they're doing quite well. And we have all shapes, sizes, and forms and abilities of curlers in the group, and it's all working out great so far. So, oh, there we are in the pool on Christmas. I know. Okay. Is Becky still there? I don't know what she has to say.
Hi. My name is Becky Holden, and like my mom mentioned, I'm her daughter. I live in Northwestern Ontario, and I've been involved in work with, before when it was called Cause, still doing On the Move and Women 55 Plus workshop facilitation, as well as running some programs with young girls, and then also with women 55 plus. And so if you want to go to the next slide, I'll just talk about some of the things that I've seen through watching my mom participate in Aquafit, and specifically the Aquafit program, but also curling. So one of the things about the Aquafit is it was really consistent. It was every Friday morning. It was subsidized by the municipality, and it was drop-in. So there wasn't like they had to sign up for 6 weeks. They just knew that Friday mornings that they were all going, and that group of women that you saw, they were there. And I think most of the times there was at least 10 women, even if it was cold. They had tokens for parking, and there was a parking lot for the pool, so it made parking more accessible. They didn't have to walk far, so they were able to kind of just, throw sweats on over top of their suits. Following the Aquafit class, the program provided coffee, and just like the women would gather in the lobby, and I feel like that really helped kind of reinforce that social network, and saw that my mom got to meet these women kind of outside the class. The instructor played music that they always talked about. The main pool was deep, but there was also the shallow pool nearby. So if women were more comfortable being in the shallow and needed to touch, that could be accommodated. And then they always had noodles and like water things to help make the exercises more adaptable, either to increase the intensity or to modify it. They had a really positive relationship with their instructor, which has kind of been seen now that this program has ended. The instructor had started teaching at a new facility. And so a lot of them have joined this new facility with her. However, something that my mom had mentioned when we were kind of talking about is now, because of COVID, like retaining instructors has been such a problem. And the instructor was really one of the drawing factors. She made it fun. They really liked the level of intensity and the energy that she brought to the class. During COVID, she even set up via Zoom so the women could still gather to at least like chat. I think one time did she do a fitness class with you guys, Mom? Like she did something.
Yeah,
But
she did a couple of weeks of we tried to do a fitness class, but it was kind of.
yeah, so she still just made that effort to keep the women connected. So I think that, that's really important with COVID. Like we know a lot of fitness instructors, they're not making tons of money. It's often like a part-time job to other jobs. And so that's a big thing that COVID has really impacted, is that some of these instructors have had to go and get like full-time jobs and now aren't available. And the women really had fun. I was really lucky that I got to go a couple times when I'd be home at Christmas holidays. And I think like the more adverse the weather was, the more fun they would have, because it was kind of that like extra challenge of like, not only were we out here like moving our bodies, but we're doing it by running like from inside to outside. And it's at the base of the pool is at the base of Blue Mountain ski hill, so you could see people skiing. It was pretty unique experience. So for me, as the daughter of a woman who's over 55, I think it really impacts like our entire family. So if you want to just go to the next slide. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Mom?
Oh, no.
So here's a picture of some of the women that curl. Did you have anything you wanted to say about the curling?
Just starting back up, which is nice, and we don't know how many more women we have this session, but yes. And they also once every so many weeks have food.
And they usually do like practice weeks before the league starts up, so people can come out. They allow the sticks, again, so that there's those modifications to help either women just learning to enter the sport, or women that need that kind of support for physical limitations. And then the next slide, please. So this is just a few things that I feel like the ripple effect of programming, like the role of matriarchs in families. I've seen my mom sort of got empty nested kind of at the same time. Both my brother and I sort of moved away from home, and moved far away from home when we did. So to see her build her own like social connection outside of us. She made a lot of new friends, especially through the Aquafit. These women have been like a really important support, not only to like my mom, but also to our entire family. I've seen that it's connected my mom to other community opportunities. So she's joined a book club that some of these women participate in. She's been volunteering at one of the local, it's an outreach program. And that again was connected to some of these women, seeing that my mom is healthy and strong even through her own recovery, and that we can still do these things together. The importance of mental health. So like on tough days, having a role model who knows that like going outside for a walk is going to make her feel at least a little bit better is something then that has changed, impacted me a lot. And just think if there was anything else. Yeah, I just think that the big thing is like just seeing at this age making new friends. Like making new friends is not easy, and I think that like sport and physical activity has such a powerful way to bring people together in a way that they might not have before, and get out, especially like if most of your role was kind of your kids' lives because you're running them around and doing all the things for them. It's nice to see like those opportunities to build like your own community, which I've seen that my mom has got to do. And also because that she's continuing to be physically active, that we all get to do things as a family together. And the next picture is just a picture of my mom with two of her grandsons swimming from this summer. And so this is a way we spend a lot of our time together in the summer at the lake. And so my nephews, there's 4 of them all together, are really lucky. They get to benefit from a grandma who will put her hockey skates on and skate with them, who puts her downhill skis on and skis with them, snowshoes, outside snowshoeing or building snowman. And then in the summer, gets them out in the kayak, the canoe, and so that they really get exposed to a lot of opportunity because she's engaged in so many different sports and activity, and we all get to share that as a family. So that's all I have to say. I don't know, Mom, if you had anything else you wanted to say.
I don't know. I think it helps having for our instructors for Aquafit. It does help having somebody who can help us with our motivational, like our skills, because some of the ladies are not, able to be as fit as other ladies, and our instructor plays a big part of that. And she's always on top of us, like, are you, this is the way you do it, this is the way you do it. So I find the Aquafit classes are more strict. The curling is we don't try to be too instructional, we don't try to get too head up about it, but everybody seems to be having fun with the curling. But the Aquafit is a good muscle building, and I don't know whether Aquafit has ever got a good anytime I see it on TV as a joke, it's old ladies just out there in the pool, but no, it is very physical benefits to Aquafit. So I'm glad I found it, and glad I was able to enjoy it while we had it at the mountain. So yes. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, everyone.
Together, thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Peggy and Becky.
Thank you.
There are some really great comments in the chat, so if you didn't have a chance to read those as you were discussing, I would encourage you to, both to. And okay. Yes, for anybody who's asking, there's a recording going out of this session. You'll be able to get that in a post email either tomorrow or Monday. And if you have any questions for Peggy and Becky, please make sure those wind up in the chat so that we have time for them in the Q&A. But I'm going to pass the mic to Gabriella who is going to share with us her experience in sport and now her role as a personal trainer specializing with new moms.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Do I sound all right? Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Gabriella Pimel. I am a personal trainer. Recently I've been just like Vanessa said, I've sort of specialized in prenatal, postnatal. I'm a mom of 2 and I have 1 on the way. So it's kind of been my roundhouse for the past, well, yeah, my oldest is 5. So for the past 5 years. So yeah, we're about to get into some barriers about we'll talk about barriers and things that sort of ways that we overcome it and the ways that I sort of coach new moms and postnatal moms. And when I say postnatal, I mean that literally ranges from after you have the baby, and it can be all the way up until your older years, because a lot of things that I do find when working with the different areas of with the different ages of my clients is that a lot of their sort of chronic issues will have started from their childbearing ages / the years that they did have children. So postnatal, I really want to make that clear, is that it is not just that first year after having a baby, but it literally can span throughout a woman's life, creating chronic issues within their bodies that sort of prevent them from continuing to be physically active or even begin to be physically active. So firstly, I just want to start off with some reasons why women become physically active. These 2 pictures are just me with my second baby and then postpartum after having her. So some moms have this newfound motivation when they find out that they're pregnant, that they want to start moving, they want to have a healthy pregnancy. There is a great fear of not being able to lose the baby weight after having a baby. It's trending on social media. Everybody has some form of social media now where it's all about the fit mom, the fit pregnancy, the bounce back, the snap back. There's just a lot of pressure during pregnancy, to get pregnant, during pregnancy, and just the expectations of what you should and shouldn't be doing. And then some women want to become physically active to actually become pregnant if they are having trouble becoming pregnant. And then the final reason that I have here, and there are many more, is the whole umbrella of injuries, chronic issues that women have, whether it's postnatal or even coming into pregnancy. They may have already had chronic issues for whatever reason, may have been an accident or something that they would like to address so that the pain doesn't sort of intensify throughout pregnancy or even postpartum. All right, so some reasons for inactivity within this group. There's a lack of resources available. All women are just unaware of where to go to receive assistance. For instance, we get so much help throughout pregnancy. We're followed by doctors, our family doctors. We're followed by, if we go to see a chiropractor or a physiotherapist, we have so much support during pregnancy. However, after you see your doctor at 6 weeks postpartum, there's this kind of place where a lot of women are at, where it's okay, now what do I do? If you've had a C-section, if you've had complications with a vaginal birth, whether it's prolapse, whether it's diastasis recti, where your abs separate, now what do I do? So there is this sort of area where moms are just sort of left to fend for themselves. So not only are they jumping into this new role of doing all of the things that they need to do in motherhood, because there's lots of books, there's things on Instagram, there's things on Google on the how to be a mom, or the things that you should and shouldn't do. it doesn't. We all sort of know that it doesn't go according to plan. You sort of have to figure it out as you go, right? Another reason is just what, like I said, like I was leading into, is just the overwhelming new tasks of motherhood. Like you think it's going to be one way, and then you realize it really is not what you sort of expected. Another reason for the inactivity is that a lot of women also are either told or believe or sort of keep silent about the pains that they may be experiencing and think that it is normal for them to experience that. One thing that I've heard many times with clients, and I've had clients who have come to see me, this is 18 years having their second baby, and they're like, you know, I still feel like I'm going to pee myself when I jump or when I run. So I just refrain from doing those activities. And I'm like, okay, well, have we ever addressed these things? Have we seen a pelvic floor physiotherapist? And they're like, what? Like, I didn't even know those things were available. And with respects to that, they were like, oh, I always thought that it was, you know, it was normal. It was just like you had a baby, people tell you like, yeah, that's normal. Like you're just going to experience that from here on out. Pain, discomfort, those types of things, the message that I try to bring across, they're not normal. Your body is telling you that there's signals that your body is telling you that something is wrong, right? And we need to address them. But a lot of us just sort of, and I like to say, like, part of being a mom, or like the expectation of being a mom, is like you wear that hat of, I'm just not going to tell anybody that I'm in pain, or I'm not going to say anything about anything that I'm feeling right now, because I'm just supposed to suck it up and keep moving and keep functioning. But we are here, right? And this is like, there is help out there, but there just aren't enough people sort of talking about it, and to sort of like give us direction as to like, where can I go to get this help, or like who can I speak to validate that what I'm feeling is not normal, right? Because you instinctively and intuitively know that something is wrong and something's off, and I want to feel the way that I did before, but I'm being told that this is normal, but it still doesn't settle with me, right? So yeah, that's sort of where I sort of step in, and I'm like, hey, like what you're feeling is validated. It's not normal, but we will address it. And then just the final reason for inactivity is just you're exhausted, like, especially if you have multiple littles at home, and you also have a full-time job, or you might be a single mom, whatever it is, it's exhausting. Life can be very exhausting. And this is where the whole physical activity and just structured movement, and it doesn't have to be for an hour, it can be 30 minutes, like whatever it is, it does help us. Like it improves our energy levels, it improves our sleep, it improves the way that our body recovers, it improves the way that we eat, and then we almost feel like we're able to tackle all of the stresses that come with life, and we're not so overwhelmed all the time. But it's sort of that thing. What's that thing that's gonna initiate us to start moving or to seek out that sort of advice? So so this is just a little bit about me. I'm a kinesiology graduate from the University of Toronto. Like I said, specialize in pre and postnatal health and fitness. I'm a motivator. I'm actually also an educator. So I work for Good Life Fitness, and I would teach personal trainers how to be personal trainers, like all of the material that they would need to sort of help their clients. I also am a weightlifter, so I still currently compete. Right now, I'm just doing what I can during my pregnancy right now, but I am a weightlifter, and I've competed in a couple competitions, and I also play field hockey. So in the summertime, that's the thing that I do. My kids are on the sidelines with me. They sort of know like that hour is my hour. Thankfully, the community in which I live in and like the hockey community is great because I sort of get that free daycare or childcare for the hour that I play. All of the other parents have absolutely no problem just sort of stepping in to make sure that my kids don't get hit by a ball or run away. So yeah, so that's really nice about where I am at right now. All right, so I just dropped some photos here. I just wanted to share with you guys just these are my different roles. Like I myself, like I said, I weightlift. This was another picture here of me weightlifting while pregnant, my last pregnancy, coaching. I tried to post a lot of content and things on Instagram, which I will share with everybody later on. Guiding ourselves through prenatal and postnatal. And these are my children. Bella is the one standing and Melody is the one sucking her finger in my hand. She just turned 1 a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so my beliefs and my sort of vision. So I believe that every woman should have access to pre and postnatal support as it pertains to physical activity. And my sort of vision and what I would like to do is make training accessible for every woman, regardless of the season that they're in, whereby each program or any of the recommendations is completely unique to the individual's needs that I work with. All right, and the way that I sort of set things up and the way that the pandemic has allowed me to really connect with a lot of people around the world, not just in Canada alone, but literally I have clients in the Caribbean, I have clients in the UK, I have clients in BC that I've like in different time zones that I've never met. So I sort of am doing this juggling act of figuring out what time zones go with what. So I've been able to sort of reach out to a lot of people via social media, and a lot of people have sort of hopped onto the social media to stay connected throughout this pandemic. And how my sort of sessions look, the way that I meet people and tell them about how this sort of training and support works is that we initially sit down for an hour. It's like a get to know you session. We talk about pre and postnatal health. We talk about labor and delivery experiences. Sorry, I am just okay. I just saw a question pop in the chat, but I guess we can save those for after, right, Vanessa? Or
Yeah, we can save that for the Q&A.
okay, awesome. Yeah, so then we sort of go through like previous injuries and surgeries, exercise history, sleep practices, sleep. So with respects to sleep practices, when the baby is in the womb, they generally tend to favor one side, come in that third trimester when there's just no more space, they can no longer move. And that definitely affects the way that we sleep, how much sleep we are getting. But in addition to that, it affects the way that the alignment of our body is. So sleep affects our alignment, but then also the baby affects our alignment, which then affects our sleep. So it's sort of all connected. We also then address topics like stress and stress management. And these things can come from work, they can come from life experiences, from our children, from our spouses, you name it. Stress, the body does not know the difference between physical stress, whether it's like a structured exercise programming, or lack of sleep stress, or I just got into an accident stress. Your body just reacts all in the exact same way. So we really dive into how do we manage those things, because they then do affect performance and our motivation to sort of get moving into a programming. If we don't feel like we have enough time or can allot time, that can also be a stressor. That's like, I don't know if I could do this. and we kind of go through, we troubleshoot is the way that I like to put it, and come up with solutions or different avenues that we can implement these regimens within our schedules. We talk about eating, especially with prenatal. We do have to, with my prenatal and that initial postnatal season, right after having the baby, the eating regimens, we have to go over those because they are extremely important with respect to our body's energy needs. So prenatal, your body is creating the human. Right now I'm in my second trimester and all I want to do is eat every single hour, but I am also weight training at the same time. So I've just got to make sure that I am maintaining a certain amount of calories so that I am not getting hangry with everybody in my house. And that's one of the things that a lot of women, they're like, okay, yeah, like I'm really, really hungry, but should I be eating? It also depends on what was this client's goals before getting pregnant. Were they a weight loss client? Were they a weight gain client? Like what were their goals? Because I've also run into the issue with some clients who were on a weight loss journey. When becoming pregnant, they're very hesitant to eat, even though they are getting those hunger signals. And we have to do a lot of teaching and a lot of educating as to what's happening to the body and why it is so important to eat. And then also postnatal, if the client is breastfeeding, breastfeeding is, I think it's they don't prepare us well for it. Every woman who has a baby is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna breastfeed, like it's easy. It's the hardest part of postpartum, in my opinion. And you're never truly prepared on all of the challenges with breastfeeding. But with that being said, the energy demands as well, like your energy demands to breastfeed, if you do choose to do that, is incredible. And a lot of women do get really stressed out about the challenges of breastfeeding, how exhausting it is, but then how much energy, and when I say energy, I mean food, how much food we need to consume to actually fuel this body to continue to make milk. And then we find a lot of times that the support with breastfeeding, some women feel defeated when they're unable to sort of keep up with the breastfeeding because it is very, very hard. So I find a lot of times when I work with my postnatal clients, I'm sort of that like motivator, like you can breastfeed and work out and like take care of your kids all at the same time, and just sort of pushing that, like, if this is something you really do want to do, you can, but then you don't have to, right? Like a fed baby is a happy baby. So formula is just as good as breastfeeding. It all depends on the individual. But even if a woman does choose to formula feed, we still have to ensure that that woman is still consuming enough energy to then perform their other duties. So that's where the eating sort of comes into performance and training and just moving. So then we get into sort of like, we go over like, what equipment does everybody have? Because right now with the pandemic, a lot of my focus has been sort of teaching my clients how to maximize the use of their spaces at home, because the gyms are opening, the gyms are closing. So if you do not have equipment, it's okay. Like we don't need it. We use flour we use like cooking flour, literally cooking flour. We use rice bags. We put them in duffel bags to make weights. You name it, we have used it. I've had clients deadlifting their beds. I've had clients like making weighted bags, like double bags. So we have a rice bag on the front and a backpack, and then rice and flour at the back. We're just estimating the weights, but there are lots of things that I've been able to teach a lot of clients on how to use the resources that we have in our house. So to sort of promote that inclusive environment to allow every woman the opportunity to move. I work for Good Life Fitness. So I mean, the gym has everything. However, it does it does prevent a lot of people from being able to use the gym, especially right now with things closing and opening. But then also Good Life had this program that was like a childcare program that no longer exists anymore, where moms could go drop their kids off for 2 hours, do their workout and come out. So now that's a whole entire group that's sort of slashed from the gym unless you and your partner can sort of figure out a time slot as to who's going to go to the gym at this time and who's not. So where I've sort of tried to come in is to help everybody, show everybody how we can use the space that we are in, whether it is, if we are traveling, we're using a hotel room, what you name it, I've done it with clients, right? And then last but not least, we have the assessment, which is the most important part of sort of this initial consult that I do. Vanessa, you can just hit the next page for me. And the assessment, it's a movement assessment. So it sometimes feels like a workout. It all depends, because I am very, very specific on the ways that the body moves. It's all about body alignment and how everything works together. I like to use the phrase Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind, from Lilo and Stitch. And during pregnancy, your entire abdominal region literally begins to live on its own island, creating this human. So after we have the baby, we now have to learn how to connect the top half of your body to the bottom half of the body. And the only way to do that is to go through the midsection. So a lot of the movements that we sort of go over, like the squat, the lunge, the push, the pull, we do some core movements, like how do we carry grocery bags? Do we lean more to one side? Do we favor one side? A lot of those things sort of tell us about the different opportunities for improvement in movement patterns through through this assessment. So yeah, that's pretty much like the bulk of it. And then, yeah, so these are just some pictures of my clients. Where does training take place? We do it at home, virtually. It doesn't even have to be at home. If you're at the cottage on vacation, we can make it happen. So as we can see in this picture, in the first picture here on the left, the top left-hand side, this is the basement of my client. She is freshly postpartum, actually. Her baby's about 6 weeks. And then I had the top right. This is my client, Audrey, and her husband and their 2 kids. They do have a third. We were actually using them to do back squats. So where in the gym we would use a barbell to do a back squat, we were using children, because that family actually did not have any gym equipment whatsoever. We also use soup cans, as you can see here, in the bottom right, and then in the bottom left-hand corner. I was just trying to show, it didn't come out very well, but this client of mine had 2 tree stumps. We did not have any stairs in her apartment, but she had tree stumps as sort of like pieces in her house. And we used them to sort of elevate her off the ground to do some single leg work. So yeah, so once again, this just sort of goes back to like what things we can sort of implement, like sort of substitute for gym equipment. So we can use soup cans for some flies, wine bottles for like pressing or tricep extensions, water jugs for rowing, cranberry juice for walking lunges, rice bags for weighted vests. And then once again, just some more equipment. And if you do have equipment, we do use it. It's just a bonus. So yeah, this is me and my Bella. So what other things do we learn in the sessions? We learn how to downregulate, how to have grace with ourselves, coping strategies for stress and anxiety, time management, accountability, making movement becomes routine, and how much movement do we actually need for our goals. So there are many recommendations, but we sort of just figure out like what is the best situation for you as an individual, given the constraints of your own life. And then my little picture over here is just how to live a little and enjoy our different seasons.
Thank you so much for that, Gabriella. That was hugely informative. Didn't realize how little I knew about that whole experience. So thank you so much for doing that. I want to open the floor to questions. We have about 5 minutes left, and I'm also going to let everybody know that we're going to launch a poll momentarily so we can capture some of your feedback from this experience, just because, you know, feedback helps us improve. So I'm going to check the chat right now. But there's a lot of comments on here, you know, really encouraging what you said, especially about, you know, breastfeeding. I have a question here for you, Gabriella. How are you reaching out to capture your audience? And I think that speaks to your client base.
Yeah, so right now, a lot of it is mostly on Instagram and TikTok. I do not have, I'm trying to get back into my Facebook, but I've been locked out and it's like a process to get back. But and then a lot of referrals. I get a lot of referrals from clients. And then sort of coming onto these different platforms and having these types of discussions. For currently, this is the way that I've sort of been reaching out to, but we're exploring sort of other avenues because there is just so much untapped. Like, I just want to be everywhere at the same time, just speaking about this stuff. I'm so passionate about it.
Absolutely. Well, we have a question for you, Peggy. So it was mentioned earlier on in the presentation about language and wording and, you know, making sure that you're setting yourself up for success by not promoting a program that, you know, alienates women 55 plus. In your experience, what are some of the things that you've seen? You're like, oh, I'm not going to that. Or names of programs where you were like, that's good, that's for me.
Oh, no, I don't. I don't know whether I've ever been in the situation. Like, most of our aquafit isn't geared to an age group. It just is aquafit, and our curling is just women's curling. We do call it that. So, as far as no,
I mean, that's
And-
helpful in and of itself, just keeping it open. But
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I think I
yeah.
interrupted you.
No, it's just I don't. We don't seem to have that problem in this area that, you know, they actually say that. So, I mean, it's a pretty active area, actually. The amount of fitness things that are going on in this community is mind-boggling, actually. But yeah, so yeah, no.
No, that's great. That's great to know. Okay, I realized there were some more questions. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get through all of them. But I'm going to launch a poll to just get some of your feedback. Thank you, Crystal. So yeah, this should only take you a minute or two. It's for, you know, questions just to understand your learning. And I'm going to reshare my screen. And I'll talk about some of the next steps as you do that. So here are some of the key takeaways that we hope we hope you leave with today. So the first of which being, you know, the power of women-only programs, inviting women participants, being active in that conversation instead of just, you know, putting out some information and hoping people show up. Creating those environments that are welcoming and fun, both or all Peggy, Becky, and Gabriella mentioned the power of fun in their experience. Incorporating that skill development. And also I want to add on to that what Gabriella mentioned about tying it back to movements that you actually do in life, whether that's carrying groceries or you know, walking with balance over ice. Developing partnerships to help you access some communities that experience greater barrier to sport participation, and then consult. So asking women directly what you want to be a part of, and supporting the planning in that capacity. We have a couple of resources. Crystal, I'm just gonna ask, is the poll still going? Did we get sufficient answers?
We got as many answers that were coming in, so I did close it now.
Perfect. So a couple of resources. These are going to come to you through a follow-up email, including the recording from this session. So a few of these are through Canadian Women's Sport and CPRA. And then we've done our question period. Here is a QR code to a additional survey just for you to be able to share your thoughts. So there's not, the 3-part questions or the Likert scale questions, but this is so you can share your feedback in full. So please take the time to complete that. We really value your feedback. And last but not least, I want to thank our 3 speakers today. It was phenomenal what you had to share. I myself learned quite a bit. And then I want to thank CPRA. I want to thank the Government of Canada and Parks and Rec Ontario for your support in delivering this workshop. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about what you heard today or future learning opportunities. And with that, we are going to call it. Thank you so much, everyone.